It's amazing when you hit some of the actual statements of Wesley. He excommunicated someone for believing in election. I mean, he didn't even have a church, and he excommunicated people.
We've never heard of that today, of course.
Right.
Which one, the excommunication?
Where is your parish, Mr. Wesley? The whole
world
world
is
is
my
my parish.
Isn't that ranging a bit widely, Mr. Wesley?
Well, Mike, you mentioned the two different types of Arminianism, Arminianism of the head and of the heart. If Arminianism of the head is a conscious rejection of the biblical description of both God and man, then are we saying that there is a good Arminianism?
Well, no, there's an Arminianism of the heart, and this is where I think Wesley was
you'd
coming
have
from.
to put Wesley in that category, because you do have Wesley in certain places speaking of justification being imputed righteousness, and then in the Methodist Minutes talking about, no, we're not saved by what was done in an instant, because every moment we're either pleasing or displeasing to God according to our disposition. So you've got Wesley being very, very inconsistent.
In fact, writing against the Calvinist Hervey, in his book Theron and Aspasio in 1755, John Wesley called the doctrine of justification as stated by the Westminster Assembly imputed nonsense.
Wow. And you read one to us one time, Kim, from Wesley, in which he said that if you think that you have not pursued holiness vigorously since your conversion, and you imagine that the imputed righteousness will save you at the end, it will not.
Or how about, this is from the Wesleyan Conference, 1770. We have leaned too much toward Calvinism, wherein, with regard to man's faithfulness, we ought steadily to assert that if a man is not faithful in the unrighteous mammon, God will not give him the true riches. 2, with regard to working for life. In fact, every believer, till he comes to glory, works for as well as from life. 3, we have received it as a maxim that a man is to do nothing in order to justification. Nothing can be more false. Whoever desires to find favor with God should cease from evil and learn to do well. Whoever repents should do works meet for repentance. And if this is not in order to find favor, what does he do them for?
Good heavens. I think historically you can make the case that first generation Arminianism by the second or third generation is Pelagianism, or leads to Pelagianism. You open the door to God and man cooperating, and it's not long before man is doing all of the saving. I think you see some of this in Wesley's comments. But I think the distinction between Arminianism of the mind, the rationalist side, that comes from that whole Unitarian Socinian impulse that basically has no place for special revelation, period. It's all done on natural religion. Arminianism of the heart is done at least from the perspective of prevenient grace being universal, and there is an attempt to say that this is by grace, that it is a universal grace that energizes the will for or against Christ. So the intentions are clearly different in the two. Is that, I think, what you're getting at?
Yeah, it's not Pelagian. Well, and also it's, because there is an evangelical, some kind of an evangelical impulse to it. Wesley could say that the Westminster view of justification is imputed nonsense, and then turn around and preach in a different phase of his career a wonderful message on justification.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I guess that's where I would recognize Wesley at least being under the umbrella of orthodoxy to that extent, because if you listen to those that follow in his path, at any given moment, they will sound very orthodox when it comes to justification. Their biggest problem is in the area of sanctification, and I think most departures in the vein of Wesley would really stem from a misunderstanding of sanctification. Whereas with the Finneyeites, it begins with justification.
That is the followers of Charles Finney, the 19th century revivalist.
I don't know, Ken. I think it's even more basic than that. If you look at some of the great Arminian systematic theology, say a John Miley or even a Richard Watson in England, you have Watson in the opening of his institutes arguing that the fundamental starting point of an Arminian systematic theology is human freedom. And you don't find any citation in biblical text. You find John Locke cited over and over and over again. Then you get to John Miley, and you've got Miley saying that the fundamentum of Arminian theology is human freedom, that is the starting point. And at that point, you've got already reason over the Scriptures. There is a rationalist impulse to the whole thing. And you take a Christian man like Wesley, who who knows what his motivations are, and that isn't even the point. But you find, because he's got these internal things within his own thinking, you can find him at part of his career sounding orthodox, and then later on basically attacking justification. And who knows? It's built into that kind of a system.
Peter Gay and other writers on the Enlightenment period, in particular, are make the point often that Arminianism and pietism combined, and this is sort of the Arminianism of the heart, combined to prepare the way for the Aufklärung, for the Enlightenment, and deism and the rationalism of the Enlightenment. Now, in one sense, Wesley's revivals in England held the Enlightenment at bay. But in another sense, it allowed one to, didn't it, to be more of a deist in things pertaining to God, while having a lot of emotion and sentiment and thirst for holiness and so forth.
Yeah, I think it's a classic reactionary movement, though maybe I'm setting this in much too narrow a temporal setting. The Church of England was in terrible shape. If Bishop Butler had been my pastor, I would have gone to atheism.
Yeah, in fact, one of the Puritans said that that if Bishop Bull, one of the Arminian bishops, if he is to become bishop, be raised to one of the episcopal seats, I am inclined to call him your morality instead of your grace.
Yes, yes, that was the state of the Church of England. And if we forget that,
yeah, that's an important point.
It was dead as a doornail.
They were straying from their own confession.
But by holding the Enlightenment back, or the influence of the Enlightenment back, they win the battle and lose the war, because the means by which they hold the Enlightenment back actually seduces the next generation to the Enlightenment.